I returned from my business trip earlier than planned and didn't tell anyone because I wanted to surprise Miguel. When I reached my street, I saw many cars parked outside, the garden decorated with pink and blue balloons, and a banner reading, "Welcome our little miracle." I parked the block away and walked back. The front door was ajar, and inside the house was filled with music and laughter. When I stepped inside, I froze in the middle of the living room. Carmen, my closest friend, was visibly pregnant, clearly in her 6th month. My mother-in-law, Rosa, was affectionately rubbing her belly while my own mother served drinks. Gifts were piled high on the table. When Aunt Elena asked about the nursery, Carmen replied that Miguel had insisted on painting it himself every weekend. Just then, my husband walked in, hugged Carmen from behind, placed his hand on her belly, and said they only needed to install the crib the two of them had gone to pick out the week before. My mother was stunned when she saw me and hurriedly tried to pull me outside to talk, but I brushed her hand away and bluntly asked how my husband had gotten my best friend pregnant while I was working abroad. The entire room fell silent. Carmen turned pale while Miguel stood frozen, his hand still on her belly. When Miguel tried to explain, I cut him off and asked how long they had been deceiving me. My father stood in the corner, not even daring to look me in the eye. My mother-in-law, Rosa, stepped forward and told me to think of the child because Carmen should not be stressed in her condition. I let out a bitter laugh and asked her where that concern had been when I lost my own child 2 years earlier. My mother tried to say that this was difficult, but I snapped back and asked for whom it was difficult. For me, the one who had been working nonstop for the past 9 months, or for all of them, the ones who had been putting on this performance together. Miguel told me not to make a scene, but I declared that making a scene should mean telling everyone how he had convinced me to take a job abroad to earn money to build our family. I turned to Carmen and asked whether he had told her that he was lonely because his cruel wife was too busy pursuing her career. When Carmen cried and said it wasn't planned, I sarcastically remarked that she must have just accidentally tripped and gotten pregnant by my husband. I stated that I was actually grateful to now see everyone's true colors, a lying husband, a betraying best friend, and a family of cowards who protected lies instead of protecting me. I opened a random gift my mother had bought for the baby, a white and blue infant outfit, and sarcastically hoped she had kept the receipt. Miguel scolded me for turning myself into a joke, but I shot back that he was the real joke for getting my best friend pregnant while I was the one paying all the bills. My mother-in-law angrily said that Miguel was just looking for happiness that I couldn't give him because I was always busy working. I replied that yes, I was busy working to pay the mortgage on the very house where her son was sleeping with my friend. I declared that they could keep the house and the gifts, but Miguel would no longer get to touch my money. I revealed that while abroad, I hadn't just been working, I had also consulted a lawyer and had evidence of every single dollar I had spent on that house and on the marriage. I left the house, my hands shaking, but I refused to collapse in front of them. I rented a hotel room and blocked all contact. The next morning, I went to a law office to begin divorce and asset division proceedings. Because the house was in my name and I paid all the expenses, Miguel had no rights to it at all. When Miguel asked to meet at a cafe and pleaded that it was a mistake caused by loneliness, I firmly stated that it was a choice. He admitted he was wrong, but I coldly informed him that the lawyer had already filed the divorce and that he would not receive a single cent. Even though the family tried to persuade me to forgive him, I moved into a new apartment and focused on my career. However, their audacity had no limits. One afternoon, I accidentally saw Carmen post an ultrasound photo on social media with the caption, "Dad took Mom and me for a checkup. Daddy's little angel was so well behaved today." In the photo was Miguel's hand resting on the ultrasound film, his wedding ring, the one I had once believed symbolized eternity, still gleaming on his finger. But what stunned me even more was the background. They were sitting in the car I had worked so hard to buy. Seeing Miguel's happy smile and the proud sparkle in his eyes reflected in the rearview mirror, my heart felt like it was being crushed. I ached for myself because for 3 years he had never once looked at me with such tenderness, yet now he was using my own assets to shelter his betrayal. I realized I could no longer allow them to enjoy themselves on my sweat and sacrifice. That car was entirely in my name, and every month the automatic installment payments were still deducted from my account. I didn't scream or send angry messages. I quietly contacted a used car dealer and arranged a transaction in broad daylight. I knew their schedule perfectly well. On Saturday morning, Miguel would take Carmen to her routine prenatal checkup. I appeared in the hospital parking lot along with a car-buying agent and a tow truck. Just as Miguel was tenderly helping Carmen out of the car, still holding the ultrasound report in his hand with a look of deep satisfaction, I stepped forward. "You look happy, Miguel," I said, my voice icy. Both of them froze. Miguel stammered, "Anna, why are you here? This is a hospital. Don't make a scene." I didn't answer him. I simply turned to the buyer and said, "This is the car. I've already signed all the paperwork. You can take it right now." Miguel screamed when he saw them start hooking chains under the car. "Have you lost your mind? This is our car. Carmen is pregnant. Are you going to make her walk home?" I looked him straight in the eye and gave a cold smile. "Wrong. This is my car. I have no obligation to finance transportation for my ex-husband's mistress to go to ultrasound appointments. If you love her and that child so much, use your own money to buy a new car." The buyer told them to remove all personal belongings. I stood there watching Miguel, humiliated, pull out from the compartment the lumbar pillow I had once bought for him, along with a stack of paper bags containing Carmen's medical reports. A crowd began to gather, whispering and staring. The car was slowly towed away, leaving Miguel and Carmen stranded in the scorching parking lot. Carmen began snapping irritably, complaining about having to take a taxi and about Miguel's incompetence. With the money from selling the car, which I received immediately, I didn't put it into savings. I decided to use it to make up for the years I had neglected myself. I booked a luxury vacation to an upscale seaside resort bathed in sunshine. I posted a photo on social media of myself sipping a cocktail by the pool wearing a sexy bikini with the caption, "Using the money from selling trash to buy back my peace. What a ridiculously cheap price." I knew Miguel would see it because just 5 minutes later, he started bombarding me with angry messages, accusing me of being cruel while he had to walk to work under the blazing sun, and Carmen was crying about leg pain. I smiled and hit block. Before beginning my healing trip, I completed one final gift for Miguel. I didn't choose messy financial lawsuits. Instead, I targeted what he had always been most proud of, his image of professional success. I sent a file to the Human Resources Department and Executive Board of his company. It contained not only photos of him being intimate with Carmen, but also evidence that he had used work hours to take his mistress shopping, to ultrasound appointments, and had even fabricated client meetings so he could secretly be with her. A few days later, just as I returned to work with glowing, sun-kissed skin, Carmen appeared. She was no longer the glamorous muse from the party. Her face was gaunt, her eyes darkened from sleeplessness and financial stress. She stormed into the lobby of my company, collapsed to her knees on the marble floor, and wailed hysterically in front of my business partners. "Anna, I beg you, please spare us. Miguel has lost his job and the only car we had was sold by you. We don't have money to pay rent anymore. But baby is about to be born. Please don't push us into a dead end." I stood with my arms crossed, looking down at her with pure disgust. "Carmen, you say Miguel lost his job because of me. No, he lost his job because he is corrupt and deceitful. You say the child is innocent. That's true. Then use whatever self-respect you have left to find a job and support it, instead of kneeling here begging for money from the woman you stabbed in the back." Security dragged her out amid whispers of contempt from the entire staff. Once the divorce petition was filed, Miguel was no longer the sweet or remorseful husband. He turned into a cornered beast, ready to bite and claw for whatever scraps of benefit remained. With the backing of his mother and a group of cheap lawyers, he decided to turn the divorce into a nightmare for me. The biggest obstacle was property. Shamelessly, Miguel claimed that even though the apartment was in my name because we had lived together as husband and wife for many years, he was entitled to half its value. He began listing every item in the house, from the television and sofa to the smallest decorations, demanding that everything be split evenly or that I reimburse him in cash. Worse still, he even filed a claim demanding post-divorce spousal support, arguing that he was unemployed and unable to earn income due to psychological trauma caused by being humiliated by me and losing his job. On the day of the court hearing, I faced a scenario I had never imagined. Miguel and his mother had prepared a team of fake witnesses. Former neighbors, who were friends of my mother-in-law, were brought in to testify that I was a cold-blooded wife who constantly emotionally abused her husband and abandoned the family to chase my career. His lawyer looked straight at me and declared loudly, my client, Mr. Miguel, sacrificed his entire career to be the backbone for Miss Anna. Her high income exists only because he took care of the household. Now that she is successful, she fabricates an affair to throw him out on the street penniless. This is a serious moral violation. Carmen even had the audacity to appear with her heavily pregnant belly, playing the role of a victim, claiming that she and Miguel were merely comforting each other because I was too cold, which led them to develop feelings while I was busy making money abroad. They tried to turn me from the victim into a tyrant, greedy, heartless, and someone who abandoned her family. For many months, I was trapped in piles of paperwork, exhausting mediation sessions, and waves of online abuse fabricated by his family. There were nights when I lay awake, seething with injustice, but I did not give up. I used every remaining cent of my savings to hire a private investigation and forensic accounting firm. And then the fateful day arrived. At the final court hearing, just as Miguel was confidently playing the role of the abandoned husband, my lawyer revealed the ace up our sleeve: secret financial statements from a secondary credit card Miguel had hidden from me. Every transaction was laid bare: hotel expenses during my business trips, luxury purchases for Carmen paid for with joint funds, and most horrifying of all, proof that Miguel had secretly withdrawn savings to invest in cryptocurrency, lost heavily, and then put the debt in my name. I stood up and faced the panel of judges. Your Honor, this is not a husband who made sacrifices. This is a parasite who drained my labor to feed his lies. He did not lose his job because of me. He lost it because of his own moral decay. The judge struck the gavel. The verdict was delivered. The court completely rejected Miguel's claims for property division and spousal support. Because the house had been purchased with my separate assets prior to the marriage, and because Miguel had seriously violated marital fidelity, he was ordered to leave with nothing. The court even required him to repay part of the money he had embezzled from my accounts. As I walked out of the courthouse, rain poured down in torrents. Miguel stood there with no car, no job, and now a massive debt hanging over him. Carmen stood at a distance, looked at him coldly, then immediately hailed a taxi and left the moment she realized he had nothing left to exploit. I opened my umbrella and walked forward proudly through the rain. This divorce was truly painful, but it gave me back my self-respect and a life more radiant than ever before. To the women who share my circumstances, those who feel their world collapsing because of betrayal by the person they once trusted most and the abandonment of those closest to them, the first thing I want to tell you is this: your kindness is not a crime. Do not sit there tormenting yourself, thinking that because you focused on earning money, because you trusted too easily, you deserved to be betrayed. A betrayer will always find excuses to justify their cowardice. Miguel accused me of being cold and infertile, but the truth is, he was only masking his own greed and laziness. Betrayal is their choice, not your fault. When I threw Miguel and Carmen out of the house, I was terrified. I feared the emptiness of the home, the judgment of society, even the harsh gaze of my own mother. But listen to me, better to be alone with dignity than to live in a fake home built on lies. Solitude is the necessary silence that allows you to hear yourself and realize this truth: you are far stronger than you think. Do not waste your tears on pointless confrontations or jealous outbursts. Learn from me. Gather evidence. Control your finances. Secure your legal standing. When Miguel and Carmen knelt begging for forgiveness or shamelessly demanded a share of my assets in court, what protected me was not tears, but bank statements and property contracts. Remember this, feelings can change, but ownership of assets does not. The sweetest revenge is living brilliantly. As you can see, I did not devote my life to cursing them. Do not let your life end at the chapter called Betrayed. Turn it into a chapter called A Radiant Rebirth. Never allow anyone to make you believe that you are unworthy of love or incapable of starting over. Lift your head high, wipe away your tears, and walk out that door. Ahead of you is not an abyss, but a sky of freedom waiting for you to claim it.